Okay, welcome everybody to today's first session of the Medical Coding Employment Readiness Workshop. And we're going to be covering a lot this week in these 5 sessions to hopefully advance everybody's opportunities and success in gaining opportunities. So welcome, and let's get to it. So, today's session, we're going to be talking about bridging the gap between education and experience, bridging the education and experience gap. Okay. Now, if you're already an experienced coder, probably 80 to 90% of what I'm going to cover in these sessions will still apply to you. Okay. So, when I direct information at the newly certified and inexperienced coders, some of that may not necessarily apply because maybe you're not a newly certified or inexperienced coder, but there's going to be a lot of information that will still be, highly relevant to everybody. So don't get bored and don't look away just because you think I'm talking, going to be talking 100% just to the newly certified, because that's not necessarily the case. But on that note, the transition from academic learning to practical application in medical coding poses a unique set of challenges for many. And so this presentation explores the elements of to bridging that gap. And so first of all, and I looked at the list of attendees, and I see some familiar names. So some of you know me, and but for anybody who doesn't, my name is Doug Palmer, and I am the CEO of AAO-MCP, American Association of Medical Coding Professionals. And I've been in the business for 33 years. I have reviewed over 1 million encounters. I have 25 years of hiring decision maker experience. I've conducted well over 1,000 interviews. I've hired hundreds of people. I've trained over 10,000 people. It's probably closer to 20,000, but I wanted to be conservative in my estimate, and have facilitated over 7,000 successful certification exams. Okay. I have information out there on YouTube approaching 100,000 views with, a 98 to 100% like rate. And if you were to visit our Better Business Bureau profile at the Better Business Bureau, we're A+ rated, 5-star reviews. Okay. Now you might say, "Geez, man, you're really bragging about yourself." No, I'm really not. I just I want you to know who you're dealing with. But on that note, this is exactly what you should be doing, whether you're experienced or not. You should be talking about you. Okay. You should be highlighting your accomplishments, your experience, what you have done. Okay. And so if you are a newly certified coder, you may not have reviewed 1 million encounters. You may not have interviewed 1,000 people. You may not have hired hundreds of people. Okay. But that's why, we didn't just do a 1-hour webinar. That's why this is a series, a 5-session series, where we're really going to dig deep and hopefully you will walk away with how to even in the face of no experience, how to set yourself apart. Okay. And so the moral of that story is this ain't my first rodeo. Okay. And so I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe that I had some valuable information and tactics and strategies and resources to share with you. So I really hope that if we go back and look at that previous page, I really hope that the part that is meaningful to you is 25 years as a hiring decision maker, thousands of interviews, hundreds hired. Okay, because we're going to talk a lot about this. Okay, you need to think about the hiring decision maker's perspective. Okay, and that is probably the biggest pitfall or the biggest shortcoming that many make, that they're thinking about them, they're thinking about themselves, and what I mean by that is they're thinking about their state of mind, their needs, their wants, their desires. Okay, which is important, but you really need to think like a hiring decision maker. Okay, you need to think about what they want, what they need, what they can and cannot do, what will influence them. Okay, so the first and most common scenario here especially with the newly certified inexperienced coder is if you are on anywhere where newly certified coders may meet such as social media, you will see this over and over again. I can't find a job. They all want a certification and experience. How can I get experience if no one will hire me? Okay. Well, if you just stop there, you are driving a car with square tires. Okay. You're not going anywhere if you just stop there. Okay. And, it's very important to note that a job posting that says certification required and experience required, okay, that's not all of the criteria. You've got to pass that criteria just to move forward. Okay, so that's the beginning, not the end. And so the certification, the experience, that is what gets you to go sit in the waiting room, proverbially, because now a lot of interviews are done by Zoom or by phone or what have you. But that doesn't get you the job. That gets you an invitation to talk about yourself and get the job. Okay. So when you are the newly certified inexperienced person, first of all, it's harder to get a seat on this bench. Okay. And so you have to up your game. You have to earn a seat on that bench waiting to get into that interview. Okay. And that's why this is worth 5 sessions of deep dive to help you do that. Okay. But just remember, certified, experience, that's in the job posting. They're not handing out jobs just because you have those 2 things. No, now you've got to go and show you. Okay. This is something else that I hope experienced, inexperienced, no matter what. Okay. You've got to really, truly, truly understand. Getting an employment offer is about being the best in line, not next in line. Okay. There's this mindset of, well, I'll just keep applying, somebody will hire me. That we're going to talk about mindset, and one of the most important things that you can do and should do, okay, is truly examine your mindset and your self-speak, the things that you say to yourself, and analyze them and ask, does it really make sense? Is that if I were hiring me, is that something that would impress me? I see often. I haven't. I passed my exam 2 years ago. I can't find a job. I'm giving up. Okay. I'm sure there are some cases where the person has truly done everything they could possibly do and gotten to that point. But the great majority have simply sent out resumes and done nothing to advance themselves. And I'm saying that because I've talked to these people, who have said, "No, I just keep sending resumes." Well, it's about results, okay? And so many people are looking for a magic wand. There is no such thing as a magic wand. What you need is a lever, okay? You need leverage. You need a lever, okay? So, if you're sitting around hoping that some magic wand will appear and a job along with it, you're in for a long road, okay? You need a lever and you need to operate that lever. So, some of the mindsets, let's just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Okay. And that's just submitting resume after resume after resume after resume. Okay. And that's why we're really going to take a deep dive in some of the sessions this week on how to get that resume to where it's going to produce results. But if there's anything, first of all, if you're a newly certified inexperienced coder, you're already at a disadvantage. You're already at a disadvantage. Sorry, I'm not trying to be Dougie Downer here, but you are at a disadvantage. There are things that you can do to give yourself an advantage or to reduce the gap on that disadvantage. Okay. But if you don't think these things through, if you don't take some of these things and apply them, you are trying to hammer a square peg into a round hole. It ain't gonna fit. Okay. So as the new and inexperienced coder, you've got an obligation to yourself to transition from the coursework learning environment to the real world. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So, very important is mindset. Okay. And it's not simply about being positive or having a positive mindset. It's thinking things through, it's taking actions, it's having a bunch of gears turning at once to produce results. Okay. And if you do not do that, if you're not willing to do that, then I'm telling you that that's why you're going to remain at a disadvantage, because other people are. And so there's a lot of people on this webinar right now, okay, who took the initiative to come and invest some time, invest a little bit of money, and take steps. So all of you have already taken a step towards narrowing that disadvantage gap. And I certainly hope to deliver information that will make that gap much more narrow, and in some cases even turn it into an advantage. So stick with me over the next few sessions, and we will give you every tool on the tool belt. Now, giving you a tool, you got to use it. You got to use it properly. I really want to talk about mindset number one. Okay. I hear this a lot. I don't want to do that. I just want to be a coder. I went to school to be a coder. I want to be a coder. Okay. Now, I'm going to work from right to left here. Okay. There's about 200,000, give or take, there's about 200,000 medical practices, medical offices in this country. There are 6,000, about give or take 6,000 hospitals. Okay. Now, remember, if you are the newly certified, inexperienced, okay, there are a number of positions you're simply not going to be eligible for. And we're going to talk about why and we're going to talk about, today a little bit, and over the next several days, we're going to talk about why you may not be able to be hired for some of these. Okay. But here is, and I actually I waited till this morning to put this left hand slide in here, but and I happen to be in Las Vegas, so if you notice that these are Las Vegas, that's because it just search my local area. But medical biller coder, medical billing and coding specialist, entry level medical billing coding assistant, medical biller and coder. Okay, and so many people dismiss this. Four out of the five listings here, they would abandon, okay, and say, oh, I don't want to be a biller. Well, folks, let me tell you about my first job 33 years ago. My first job in this business was answering inbound telephone calls for client hospitals about past due bills. Okay, so there were letters sent out. Dear Mary, you have a past due bill at such and such a hospital. Please call this number. And I would get that phone call. And I got called names. I got threatened. My mother got called names. I mean, it was literally, aside from emptying the waste baskets, it was about the lowest rung on the ladder that you could be. But I liked it from day one. Okay, so I wasn't even doing billing. It was more customer service. It was more about, it was almost like almost customer service slash soft collections. Okay. But it gave me my foot in the door, and I would not trade. If I had to do it all over again, I would go back to the exact same spot and do it again. Okay. Because I learned so much. And so over the course of my 33 years, I probably spent close to half of that as a biller slash coder in the same place. Okay. So let's go back to that medical office. There's 200,000 of those in this country. Okay. Here's your opportunity. Biller coder. Okay. Because most practices, we're going to talk in a couple, in some of the sessions about, understanding the industry, not just your role, not just sitting and coding. You got to understand the industry to be at your best. And if you understand the industry, you may hear, oh, healthcare is such a big dollar industry, this, that, the other thing. Well, the providers are often on a pretty tight financial budget, or tight margins, etc. So most medical offices don't hire a separate biller and a separate coder. Okay, so if you say, oh, I don't want to be a biller, I don't want to learn billing, okay, but you have now widened your gap instead of narrowing it. Okay. Now, some of you might be saying, oh God, but I paid so much. I paid so much to get a coding thing. Why didn't they teach me billing? Or why, well, I will say that, many people really do not come into learning this field with all the information that you should have. Okay. But I will tell you, if you are in this workshop and you want to learn billing, all you need to do is let us know and we will help you. Okay. And we don't work free, but we work cheap. Okay. And so if you want to add billing to your repertoire and increase your your resume and widen the scope of eligibility for positions, we will help you. Okay. And we'll talk about the support and stuff at the end of today's webinar and the end of each day's session. So, but here are and literally I just search medical coding jobs. That's the term I put in, medical coding, and then jobs, and this is what came up. Okay, 4 out of 5 were biller coder. Okay. Even as a coder, you need to understand the entire revenue cycle. You need to understand the role you play and the impact that you have downstream and overall. So again, I wouldn't go back. If I had to go back and do it all again, I would go back exactly where I started. Okay. So like I hear people say, I want to be an inpatient coder. And the question I ask is, well, why do you want to be an inpatient coder? And they say, I see a lot of jobs for it. Okay. Well, the reason you see a lot of jobs for inpatient coders is a hospital. That's a big ticket item. Okay. Inpatient is high ticket, high compliance risk, high a lot of things. And so you see a lot because the threshold of experience is a lot higher to become an inpatient coder. And so that's a mirage when you think, oh, well, there's just a lot more jobs as inpatient coders. No, there's just fewer inpatient coders, fewer qualified inpatient coders. So you see kind of a glut. And that's where understanding the business, understanding, not just if you just focus on, I want to be a coder. I don't want to know anything else. I just want to be a coder. Okay. The less you know, the less advantage you're going to have. The less you're willing to know, the bigger your disadvantage. Okay. So again, keep in mind, there's far more jobs in medical offices. So think about this. Think about where your nearest hospital is. And God, I hope nobody lives right next door to the hospital, because I'll shoot this analogy in the foot. But so imagine getting in your car and driving to your local hospital. Now, count how many medical offices you're going to pass on the way. Okay. So, look, all those doctors that practice at those hospitals, and then there's doctors who never practice at a hospital, so or very rarely, especially now with hospitalists. Okay. So just keep in mind that it's pure numbers. There's far more medical offices in this country. Okay. And those are the ones we're going to talk. I think it's Wednesday about who can't hire you. Okay. As a new and experienced person. Well, the medical office is certainly going to be wary of hiring somebody without experience who, but that's often going to be one of your best chances. There's also another area of coding that we'll talk about later in the week that you will get trained in for free if you desire, if you're part of this workshop. But remember, 200,000 medical offices, 6,000 hospitals. And the other thing is, and we're going to talk about this on some subsequent slides here, but there's only so much room for entry level. See, this one was a 1 out of 5 here, actually had entry level. Okay. So you've got to pay your dues. I had to pay my dues, and I'm glad I did. It was worth everything in the world to me. Okay. So, I said you had to understand the mindset of the hiring decision maker. Okay, your mindset's important. Okay. But I got to tell you, as a hiring decision maker, I already understand what your mindset is. I understand you want a job, you need a job, you feel you've earned a job, and those things are not without merit. Those things are not untrue. Okay, but as a hiring decision maker, okay, my goal is not to satisfy your needs. Okay, your goal, your job is to satisfy mine. Okay, because healthcare is a business, and we'll talk about this, but healthcare is a business, and so I've got, as a hiring decision maker, I've got to make sure the business keeps running. Okay, And so you need to understand more, but three things: the qualifications, okay? And so a certification is a minimum qualification. It's not the overarching qualification, okay? The skills, okay? And so many say, "Oh, I learned. I was a great student. I learned how to code." There's far more, and as a matter of fact, I know I have some experienced people here today. Let me see if I can. Any of my experienced people want to raise their hand here? So, how about TS? Can I unmute you? You want to speak for a second? You might be at work. I don't know if you can. How about KB? KB, can I unmute you? I know you're in the car. I think you said you were in the car, but can I unmute you? I'm gonna try unmuting you, and let's see. Let's go back to Tanika first. And so Tanika, and then we'll come back to Kathy. So Tanika, I am going to. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, Doug.
So,
Hey.
Tanika, you're an experienced same-day surgery coder, and and otherwise, okay. Is your job only assigning codes?
No,
No.
to be honest, is far more in depth than that.
What are,
And
what are some of the other things that I know you probably take it for granted at this point because but like, what are some of the other things that if I were hiring you, I would need to know that you can do?
well, one of the
What,
things is
and you're
that
doing one of them right
oh,
now.
I know, right? One of the things is that, like Doug said, the job definitely requires more than just assigning codes. Is that you really have to be aware of what's going on when you're, well, for me especially with surgeries, of what the doctor is doing, and so that I can translate and abstract the most specific and the best thing to, or the best codes to describe what the doctor actually was, what was provided for that patient's care. And not only do I have to make sure I'm vigilant with abstracting, whenever there's something that comes back for a denial, I usually try to make sure that I coordinate with the person in billing that sends me. If I can't figure out what's going on, because usually she'll have a reasoning, because I don't do billing. But to be honest, where I am now, I realize that there's some parts of billing that I need to go back and look at because I don't know. Because there are certain things that have come back to me as denial, has nothing to do with my coding. However, it has everything to do with the insurance and their guidelines. And so that's something as well that I would say is very important. Outside of those two things, I will
And
always say
if I can let
networking.
me interrupt you for a second, Tanika, because you panning out, you just mentioned a couple things. You kind of described them, but you mentioned communication. So the
Yes,
dial comes back,
I was getting back to,
communication to you that
yes, I
hey
was
hey
getting
we
back
need this resolved. Problem solving. You said that the payer guidelines. You need to understand the guidelines. So in coding, coding is the foundation of the job, but there's so many other things that you need to do. Tanika, if you were if you were reading a encounter note for a patient coming in for a headache, and they did a X-ray of the ankle, you'd probably have a question, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's what I said, making sure you have to be vigilant about what is being coded, because there are times where a doctor has put he's done XYZ in the description as his procedure, but when I read the note, it is so different than what he's saying. So being vigilant and being being aware of the meat in the note is very important, because sometimes, like, of course, we have encoders, but the encoders can suggest a code and it is just a suggestion. But if you go with it, it could be absolutely incorrect,
And then
but it falls
there's
back on
things
you.
to point out the inexperience versus the experience, because again, Tanika is an experienced coder, and so I'm gonna and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want to test you, Tanika, with I think a pretty simple one, but to illustrate to the inexperienced, this is what experience brings to the table. So Tanika, an appendectomy was done. Can you
Mhm.
tell me two things that you would need to know to code that? Can you tell me off the top of your head? And if not, no big deal. But
Well, I'm looking for the if an appendectomy was done, I'm looking at the diagnosis codes, like if the patient had any type of abdominal pain, exactly where exactly the location of the abdominal pain, and as well if they have appendicitis. And so when a doctor um is going through
how
his
about from a
notes,
procedure coding perspective?
well,
Two things that would influence the procedure code.
so I'm looking to see if it was done open or laparoscopically.
Perfect. That's one off the top. You see, and so she knows that off the top of her head, folks. And this is what you need to understand. This is an illustration to the not inexperienced. See, Tanika knows that off the top of her head. Can you think of the other thing that often that might sway the procedure code, Tanika?
Sometimes doctors can do it robotically, and that's another thing also as well too that can sway.
And also with or without abscess. Okay,
Oh,
is
yes. So,
yeah,
yes, I
yep. So
that part.
so again, folks. I'm going to make a point here after we're done with Tanika, and actually done it, Tanika. I'm gonna mute you back and thank you. And
Okay.
I want to just see if my friend Kathy has anything to add. Okay.
Okay. No
So
problem.
uh, Miss Kathy, do you have anything to add? And you can unmute yourself there if you.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Um, yeah, when she was talking about documentation, you're you're like a investigator, and you're investigating what in the note those that information that you're looking for, what codes they have picked, if they match what's in the documentation, because you can't code it if it wasn't in the documentation. Um,
So, oh, I'm
so
sorry.
so you so you also do. I mean, these days some auditing is involved, some CDI really is involved, some preparing as a trainer, an educator is involved. Um, there's a lot of different aspects now to medical coding, auditing, uh, CDI, and whatnot that you've got to know a lot of things. You've got to know your anatomy, you've got to know your physiology, your disease processes. There's a lot of different aspects. It's not just straight coding. I started out kind of like Doug did, where I did billing. The doctor basically coded it, and I just billed what he had. But as I had my certification, I learned I was checking more. And I was looking at the documentation and seeing if the information he was talking about was there. There was many times when I had to go back to the doctor and go, you forgot one part. I need a little bit more information here because a modifier is needed. So your modifiers are important too.
So, thank you, Kathy. And I know Kathy's in the car, so please be careful and safe travels. So,
Yeah.
thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
And so for the inexperienced folks, okay, these are Tanika and Kathy are both, members of AAOMCP who, why did they come today if they're experienced coders? Because That's who they are. They are constantly, and many of our other members are too. Constantly, and there's others who I didn't call on here, but not for any other reason, but we have several members who are on here who I know have experience, but this is how they be tomorrow. They're going to be more experienced, and you heard Kathy and you heard Tanika, and I can tell you one thing for absolute sure about both of those ladies. Neither of them was born with medical coding experience. Okay, so you heard it. They both had to get their first shot. Okay, and they've never looked back. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on, but a certification is the beginning. It's not the end. Okay, and you just heard from experience right there. Besides me, so very important to understand. Okay, so some of the other things, the skills that you need, as a medical coder, and the skills that the new and inexperienced medical coder don't bring to the table, and so it makes it a little more difficult. Is computer skills, EMR. Okay. Do we have anybody here who is willing to say hi? That is new, inexperienced, and looking for their first opportunity. That wouldn't mind me unmuting you so we could chat for a second. Anybody here? Okay. So, am I pronouncing that? Well, I'll ask you after. I guess I gotta unmute you for you to answer that. So give me 1 second. Okay, and I have allowed you to unmute if you'd like to.
Hi, my name is Mira. I'm a CBCA.
Hi, Mira, and that's exactly how I was going to ask you if I was going to pronounce it right. So that's exactly how I would have pronounced it. So, Mira, welcome and thank you. So here's my question for you. Okay, so you're a CPCA. Okay, so you've passed your exam. Have you worked in the healthcare field at all?
No.
Okay, so you're interviewing with me, right? Question number 1 is, Mira, what EMR have you used? How would you answer me?
I had a practice EMR that I did during school for medical coding.
Okay. So that's great. I now a actual EMR?
It was a simulation.
Right. But not just practice charts, but practice charts in a framework of a simulated EMR?
Yes, it was basically a simulated computer program.
Uh-huh.
We were given like steps for this simulation. Like you have to do, if you want to insert codes, if you want to do billing type things, like how much we're going to charge this person, it would show you how to use the EMR through a demo, and then you would have to basically replicate what the demo did.
Cool. Because it not everywhere offers that, and we have that, and so I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that your place did, because so Mira, you may not recognize it, you may not necessarily realize it, but that is one disadvantage removed. You know what I mean? So, how long ago did you pass your exam?
I passed my exam on March 14th.
Oh my God, the ink isn't even dry.
You gotta go for it,
Absolutely. Well, you know what? The other thing, so if I were interviewing you, right? The other thing and I think everybody on this webinar can hear it. You have an almost intoxicating enthusiasm. I mean, you're very. I got to tell you, I have interviewed some people who interviewing a rock would have been more stimulating. You know what I mean? Boy, when you unmuted, you're like, I'm Mira, and you entered the room like nobody could miss you. You know what I mean? And that's great. So it looks like you got a lot going on for you, and hopefully the rest of this week will be beneficial for you. So
Yeah, I'm looking
and
forward to
so.
it.
And while you're unmuted, any questions so far, or any questions? We're gonna have questions at the end also, but heck, as long as you're unmuted, anything on your mind?
So I'm coming from big tech. And I was wondering, I mean, I've talked to a few other people about this, about how to transition from big tech to coding. Is that I do have experience in different areas, but it's all been in big tech, which I know is a really good thing, but I'm not entirely sure how to leverage that just yet. And I know I'm in the beginning, but I want to do this. I worked very
What did you
hard.
what did you do? And I know you said you did a number of things, but what did you do in big tech? Were you a developer, a coder, a software engineer? What did you do in big tech?
I was basically the data entry girl, honestly.
Okay.
It wasn't a lot.
Were you good at that? And what I mean by that is, I imagine speed and accuracy are two elements of that, right?
It was very quick. I was very accurate.
Good. So those are transferable skills. And so through the rest of the week, we're gonna touch on, okay, you have these two things, because so here's the thing. Okay, some people will put data entry on their resume. Okay. You know what? You might as well. I'd rather watch paint dry or watch grass grow than read that on 1,000 resumes. It's taking that and communicating that as a transferable skill. You know what I mean? So we'll talk more about that later in the week. And the other thing for everybody, and those who I'm sure that Tanika and Kathy and any of our regulars would tell you that what you get is 365 days of support. So Mira, if you have a question, you can always come to the site and open a chat, and we answer them 365 days a year. Okay, so a lot more to go this week, and then as far as that question about how to transfer, we'll help you with that as well. Okay.
Okay.
And thank you for you see that some people sit in the back of the room and don't want to participate. So you already demonstrated some of those difference makers today. So pat on the back to you. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. So that covers this slide, folks. Is you need to understand what the hiring decision maker is looking for. They know what you're looking for. They know you're looking for a job. They know they know you want a job. They know you're hungry for a job. They know that. But they know that about the 30 people they're going to be interviewing. Okay. So you've got to set yourself apart. The other thing I want to talk about is expectations. Okay. And again, I truly believe that so many people get drawn into a sales funnel to take a coding course, and I'm a firm believer in even answering unasked questions before somebody goes down this road. Okay, but you have to understand that some of your expectations, very few of your expectations, were set by an employer. Okay. No employer said, hey, if you go take that coding course and pass the exam, we're going to hire you. If they did and they don't, well, then go hire a lawyer. But I'm saying that new coders have this expectation. Well, I passed my exam. I have my certification. Why won't anybody hire me? Well, most of your expectations were set by somebody who sold you a training course. Okay. And so you've got to sort out those expectations that were set by some third party and not employers. Okay. an employer. We're going to talk about why this experience thing is so important here in just a moment. Okay. I do see my friend Amber, even after I got my first certification, I started out doing patient registration for a local hospital ER, which gave me the exposure to the medical field in so many aspects. And Medicaid, and then, I know this about my friend Amber. Then she got into risk adjustment and HCC. So Amber is, again, any of our existing members who are on here, folks, if you're the new and experienced new and inexperienced coder, do you see what experienced coders are doing? They're coming to get some information, and you only see that because you're here, okay? And so you're doing the right thing. So but understanding the most important expectations are those of the hiring organization, okay? Yours are important, but I'm sorry, the most important are the organization looking to fill a role, okay? And so if you're not managing expectations well, you may be up for some disappointment, okay? So let's talk about the importance of experience. Why do employers prioritize experience in medical coding? So beyond the theoretical knowledge, the textbook, the course knowledge, experience offers insights into real-world applications. You heard Mira say it. Her course had a real EMR or a simulated EMR, and provided her an edge over others. Okay, and I don't know if you guys could soak up Mira, but I soaked up Mira. She is, she is very enthusiastic, and I'm sure that she attacks knowledge with like a pit bull. So it's not just about knowing the codes, it's about understanding their impact on patient care and billing. Okay. So here's folks, let's be real here. If you needed surgery, let's say heart surgery or brain surgery or lung surgery or liver surgery, right? Would you want the doctor to say, I took a course with no instructor, I watched some slideshows and read some PDFs, and I got a 75% on a multiple choice, but don't worry, I'm a fast learner. Honestly, do you want the doctor doing surgery on your brain? Okay, would this be your first choice? Now I'm poking some fun here, okay? But no, you would probably want that doctor to be doing that surgery, a number of times alongside an experienced surgeon, right? Okay. And so that's what doctors do. It's called a residency, and after residency, often they do a fellowship, okay? And let me tell you what, they do get paid for that, but it is not much. I mean, probably a coder probably makes more, okay? So this is one thing that's really important to understand, okay? You paid for a course to learn, you paid for an exam to take a test, okay? Employers did not sign up to be your training ground, okay? So yes, some will, and I want you to understand. I told you 25 years as a hiring decision maker. I've always tried, whenever I could, to give opportunity to the inexperienced, but they had to earn it. They had to. I didn't just hand it out. They had to give me a reason why they had to show me, like Mira, okay? And I wasn't always in a position where I could do that, okay? And we'll talk about why. Healthcare is a business. It's a business, and they have to continue their operational continuity, okay? So you have to understand that even the most empathetic, sympathetic hiring decision maker may not be able to to devote the time and resources to training, okay? Revenue. It's a business. The money has to keep coming in. And if you, you know, one of the things about Amira, I want to unmute you again for a second, if you don't mind. I mean, I got to find you on the list here. And Mira, I'd like to ask you one more question.
Yes.
Did in that simulated EMR, did they give you like batches of charts and measure your productivity / accuracy? Was
No.
that something? I'm sorry?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So you, you and I will talk because you know that is something. So thank you. I'm gonna remute you. But that is you know productivity and accuracy is a very, very key performance metric. Okay. Um, you have to understand. If you don't understand it, you don't want to understand it. You got to understand that a medical practice, especially a medical practice, bigger organizations may be able to absorb a little bit more, buffer a little bit more, lag. Okay. But the smaller an organization is, if if a physician practice has three coders, three biller / coders, and they're down one, and they can't have quote unquote dead weight. They can't afford it. They got to keep paying their bills. And so it is your responsibility. It's not their responsibility to get you up to speed. It's your responsibility to do that. Okay. And that's just that may be a tough pill to swallow, but it's the truth. And I'd rather tell you that I'd rather hurt you honestly than mislead you with a lie. Okay. So little song from back in the 60s, but I'd really rather tell you the truth and let you grapple with the truth than to have you grapple with some ambiguity or misleading statement. Compliance. Look, as a new coder, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes, and some mistakes have very serious implications for healthcare organizations. So there's a compliance aspect to it. Okay. And then, I kind of touched on this a moment ago. Resource strains. Again, if a let's say a 10, 15 physician practice has 3 medical biller coders and they're down one, and they hire an inexperienced coder, now they're down 1.5. Because one of them or the combination of the two is not going to be as productive as those two would be with a third. It's a resource strain. Okay. You need to understand that this is what's between the ears of a hiring decision maker when they're reviewing resumes, when they're interviewing. Okay. And if you're not interested in meeting them in their goals and their challenges, why would you expect them to meet you on your goals, challenges, and et cetera? So the more you understand, the bigger advantage you're going to have. Okay. And that may sound like bad news so far, but this is only day one. Okay, this is only session one. We're going to talk about how Mira already let the cat out of the bag a little bit. She has something that not everybody who has recently gotten certified has, and at least she's dabbled in an EMR. Okay. When I asked that question, I was expecting the answer none. So she shocked me there, or surprised me, I should say, and that's great. So what qualifies as experience? Okay. It isn't just time spent on the job. Okay. It can be a lot of things. And Kathy said, you heard Kathy say she started billing. Okay. That's how I started. I didn't even start billing. I started answering phone calls and getting called names. Okay. That was my job. Okay. But in the process, I learned billing, and the more I learned about billing, the more I wanted to learn about coding. And so if you learn coding, you should have that curiosity about billing so that you are the total package. Okay. And so what qualifies as experience? Well, I'm going to tell you that really depends on the hiring organization and the decision maker. Okay. Now, I'll talk about, I'm going to expand on that a little bit more in just a second. Okay. But how can you get experience if you can't find a job? Okay. And, and these are few and far between, but you may, you may be able to volunteer at a local hospital. You could call around a local doctor's offices and say, look, I'd just like to see if I could come in and do some things for free. That volunteering may be an option for you. I will say an internship or an apprenticeship is probably you're going to get the most value out of. Okay. And, unpaid internships. Look, in this field, I've seen in 33 years, I could probably count on one hand with fingers left over how many paid internships I've seen. Okay. Some are willing to do an unpaid internship. Okay. The reality is you may have to consider paying for an internship or apprenticeship scenario. Okay. And if you do that, you want to look at what you're going to get out of that. There's some that are unsupervised practice encounters. Okay. That is just a continuation of passing your exam. It does not give you any communication experience. It doesn't give you any problem-solving experience. It doesn't give you any participation with coworkers experience. It doesn't give you any mentorship or assessment or evaluation of your skills. So the right apprenticeship will provide you with a reference, because that is one of the things that you don't have as a new and inexperienced coder. You have nobody to vouch for you. You have nobody to write a letter and say, Mira is, a great communicator. She's a really good team player. She has a great solid foundation in coding, and aside from her high accuracy and productivity, she has the problem-solving skills that exceed a 5-year coder. Like something that speaks to your unique abilities and accomplishments. So that's going to be the best, the best road. The other thing is, this is my first question when I know somebody is inexperienced. My first question is, okay, and you heard me ask Mira. I asked her, so when did you pass your exam? Okay, and the ink is still the ink isn't even dry statement. She just passed hers a couple weeks ago. If you come to me and you passed your exam 6 months ago, and I ask you this question, what have you done since you passed your exam to, maintain your skills? Okay. And you say something along the lines of, well, I've been applying for jobs. I've been looking for a job. Okay. That is not advancing your skills. You are now inexperienced minus 6 months. Okay. And I will tell you, we're going to talk about this more in later sessions. You may as well not have gone to the interview if you're going to come up with an answer like that. I shouldn't say that. You go to the interview, but if you're not going to do anything else, you should be doing charts on your own. Okay. Now you'd be self-assessing. You don't know if you're doing it right or wrong, but if you show the initiative that, you know what, for 6 months, every day I find charts online, and while I don't know if I'm doing it right, I code them. Come up with something. 0.5 is better than 0. So the important thing to demonstrate when you don't have as experience is that you're trying to get the experience, that you're doing something. The most disappointing answer I can get is well, I really haven't done anything in the 6 months since I passed my exam. How is that supposed to impress me? Why am I supposed to give you a shot if you haven't given yourself a shot? So again, that's where you need to be in the mind of the interviewer. Okay. So I hope you write this down, or the slideshow will be in the learning system. Okay. That these are things that you should be answering to yourself on a daily basis in preparation for an interview. Okay. If you have good, solid, factual, substantive answers to these three questions, you are going to be well on your way to a successful interview. Okay. What have you learned? Articulate what you learned. Okay. I learned coding. That is not, sorry. That's not what we mean. Okay. Oh, well, injections and infusions. There's so many moving parts of injections and infusions. That term initial doesn't necessarily mean the first part, the first thing done in an injection infusion. Or wound repair. Boy, wound repairs are so complex that you got to add the different areas of the body and the different complexities, and you got to add them together, all the lengths together. If you can speak, the more specifically you can speak correctly about something, the more you're going to impress the interviewer. And these things are things that you don't have to have had a job to be able to grow and grow yourself. Okay. And then speak about challenges that you've had, that you've overcome, this was a challenge, a wall that you didn't think you were going to get over, under, or around, and you did. That's what an potential employer wants to see, whether you're experienced or not. They want to see that look, this is not Wonderland. Okay. Every chart has a potential to be a challenge. Okay. And your job as a coder is to resolve that. And so if you can speak intelligently about how you've experienced challenge, sorry, my mouse is gone, and so but if you can demonstrate to the interviewer intelligently and articulately and specifically the content of an experienced person, that's going to impress them. That's going to impress them more than an experienced person telling them. Okay, would me. So we're going to be talking the rest of the week about strategies for gaining experience. I'm going to show you part of it is exactly what Mira has already done. She's already worked in an EMR. Okay, because I think Tanika said it. Somebody said it. An EMR, and there's so many out there. There's so many different EMRs out there. But if you understand an EMR, it's going to cut. Look, you could go from hospital A to hospital B, and one could be using Meditech, and the other one could be using Cerner. Okay, or one could be using Epic, and the other could be using Cerner. Okay. There's going to be a learning curve. Even if you're coming from Epic to Cerner, there's going to be a learning curve. But if you already have the foundation of working in EMR, that learning curve is going to be much shorter, because they all do the same thing. It's different keystrokes, but if you know where to go, if you're moving from one to the other, you're going to say, okay, I know what I'm looking for. I just got to find the right menu option or whatever. So if you have the more skills that you bring, and you don't, again, I find it, I'm going to be honest. I find it insulting if somebody without experience comes and basically says, well, you're supposed to train me. No, I'm not. No, wait, when did I sign up for that? You've got to show me that you are taking the ball and running with it. Then I'll help you. Then I'll help you carry it. Okay. But that's one of the biggest mistakes that new and inexperienced coders make. Okay. So anything you do, doing nothing is the worst thing you can do. Okay. Anything that you can do that advances your skills and your knowledge, is going to be a bigger advantage for you. And the biggest disadvantage is to demonstrate that you've done nothing since passing your exam and simply expected to be rewarded for that. Okay. So again, I'm not trying to be Dougie Downer, but I am speaking as a hiring decision maker to you. So look, I need genuine real world experience. Okay. And now this is my opinion. Maybe not every just hiring decision maker shares this, would say this, maybe they don't feel this way, but I don't care that whether you got a paycheck or not to gain access to your real world processes. In other words, if you paid for, I saw one the other day, they charge over $3,500 for a 6-month apprenticeship. They charge $3,500, and I think I think that's ridiculous. But but what have you? Okay, but I see people say, well, I've paid too much already. Okay, well, that's like buying a car and saying, I'm not going to drive it. I'm not going to put gas. I can't afford gas. So I'm not going to put gas in. I'm not going to drive it. But you paid for the car. Okay. If there were many options when you started down this road, and you probably weren't aware of all of them. And some of the options, as soon as you pass your exam, the door closes behind you. It's going to cost you a lot more, and you're going to get a lot less. So, by the end of the week, we're going to show you how you can get real world process experience. And I will tell you this: 33 years in this business. I own my own business, have for 10 years. Okay. Every inch of ground that I gained because I was, even that first job that I had, I'll never forget the owner of the company. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. Okay. And from day one through today, even as a business owner, I have mentors to help me, that I look up to continually increase, my ability to operate a business. So a mentor is absolutely a invaluable thing. Okay. And of course it should be the right mentor. Okay. Practical experience, okay, is, again, this is what separates the inexperienced from the experience. So if you're the inexperienced and you want to be experienced, get practical experience. And if you say, well, the only way I'm going to do that is if I get a job. Well, okay. Sit down and figure out, let's say $18 an hour, okay, which is on the low end for a coder. Figure out $18 an hour times 8 hours a day, or times 40 hours. Okay. And if you haven't been able to get a job in 6 months, look at what it costs you. So if you want to bite your nose off to spite your face, okay, nobody's stopping you, but there's paths of least resistance. Okay. So and we'll be talking about that more as we go through the week. Again, if you're not going to do all that, I have a sequence of questions that I ask. Okay. And if we get down to it, I'll ask, well, what have you done on your own? Have you gone online to find practice cases, practice assessments, and stuff like that? And you wouldn't believe how many people say no. And then that's the end of the interview. Okay. With me. So, many different ways, and we'll be talking about that. And so, oops, this slide is a little, so I wanted to talk about scenario based discussions. Okay. And I shared one, sorry, I didn't resize that image, so I'm going to move on to the next one, but the next slide, just because, but I already talked about mine. I want to tell you a little bit more about my start. Okay. I didn't take a course. As a matter of fact, so what happened? I was young, very young, early 20s. I had just gotten out of the Air Force. and I I went to happy hour, and it didn't end so happily. Okay, I ended up getting I ended up having the state tell me that I had to take a break from driving for 6 months. Okay, and in the process, I also my car got a little banged up. So luckily, I didn't hurt anybody else. But so I lived in very rural New Jersey. I lived out in horse pastures. Okay, and so you went nowhere without a car or a horse, and now I had neither. So there was the train station. That train went into New York City, so which was an hour train ride. So young, inexperienced, got nothing on my resume. Nothing. I mean, I was an aircraft mechanic. I had been an aircraft mechanic, I mean, but I wasn't looking for that kind of job. So I remember I had 5 interviews scheduled one day. We got on the train, and I went to the first interview, and it happened to be with this medical billing company. And I'll talk about this more throughout the week, but I'll just never forget the guy who was interviewing me, who ultimately became my boss, Lewis. Now, he could have been waving around just a ream of copy paper. I don't know, but I remember him waving this big stack of papers in front of me saying, "Why you? Why should I hire you?" And let me just tell you, I just remember the sheer panic, right? I don't even remember what I said. I honestly don't even remember what I said, but it must have been satisfactory because I got the job. Okay. But you've got to be able to put your best foot forward. Okay. And you've got to be confident. I know, I know I was confident. Um, you know, I have pride in myself. I have pride in what I do. Okay. And I don't know, did you hear Tanika? Did you hear Kathy? Did you hear Mira? I mean, those each of them spoke with confidence and pride. And the fact is, there's a lot of people who don't. And so you got to put your best foot forward with confidence and with pride. These little things, these little X factors make a big difference. So, so I want to, I saved this for, I reserved this little bit of time for, Mira, if you have anything to add, you can. But is there anybody who, you can type in the chat that you'd like to speak? Anybody have any particular challenge that they'd like to discuss, and maybe we can start nipping it in the bud today before we move on to the remaining sessions. But anybody have a question or a anything they want to get off their chest? Or all you have to do is type in the chat me. Anybody? No? All right. I want to talk about this thing. Not all certifications add a letter. Okay. And that can be, I call it a derogatory letter. It is derogatory. Okay. There are, if you've ever seen, job posts that specify no, this particular thing. Okay. Just removing that. Okay. So that can be a real stopping point. Okay. Many resumes that have that on it don't even get looked at. Okay. Not all, but many. Okay. Because it said in the job post, it said, none of these. Okay. But you remove that, and there's this myth that all of a sudden you're entitled to a job. Okay. And again, I'm not trying to be Dougie Downer. I'm trying to be real with people here. You're still the inexperienced coder. There were 2 battles you were fighting. Okay. You removed one. it didn't make the other battle go away. Okay. So achieving a certification is a milestone, and it's one to be proud of, and it's accomplishment, and you've got my full admiration and support. Okay. But advancing requires more than that. Okay. And we've talked about real world experience, continuous learning. I've touched on that. It's it is it is a trait to be identified. If you're not willing to continue to learn just because we haven't hired you yet, how are you going? How is that convincing me that you're going to be a good employee? You know what I mean? So, you know, here's the thing: medical coding is not a job. Okay, it's not a job; it's a career. Okay, it's a specialty at least. You know, and so if you wanted a job, walk down Main Street, look for help wanted signs. Okay. But something that requires you to go to school and take a test and have some mark of distinguishment, that's not typical of a job. Okay, so you've got to show that you know the word specialist or professional or whatever is in a lot of these credentials. You got to show that you want to be that specialist, that you want to be that professional, that you want to be something. You know what I mean? And so, you know, again, achieving a milestone is not the finish line. There is no finish line in this industry. I still learn every day after 33 years. At 33 years, I'm still learning every day. Okay. And that is, I will tell you, that's how I got where I am. And maybe you don't want to be where I am, but if you know, if you want to be halfway to where I am, if you want to be anywhere beyond where you are, you've got to continue to develop and learn. Okay. Because again, removing a letter, you're still the inexperienced coder. And the rest of the sessions, we're gonna show you how to, you know, to develop that experience. Okay. But we all have to grow up. You know, when we're born, we crawl, we waddle, then we walk, then we run. Okay, we learn to tie our shoes, you know, all that. So this is a process. It's not, you know, an instant destination. So derogatory letter or not on your resume, whatever, you still need to get to an interview. And do you remember those opening slides with a bunch of people sitting out there in the interview room? Okay. Just because you get an interview, this is, you know, a resume is just a tool to get you an invitation to the dance. Okay. Then you got to dance and you got to be impressive with your dance. Okay. And I will tell you this, creatively, artistically creative answers that are not correct are a bad idea, and we'll talk about that more during the week. So listen, if you're the new inexperienced coder, you're probably hitting a wall, and some experienced coders, you're probably hitting a wall. You have to find a way over, under, around, or through that wall. Okay. You've got to do that, or you're in for a very, very, very long and discouraging road. Okay. So, so let's get to, do we have any questions? If you have a question, you can, as a matter of fact, I'm going to unmute everybody. Okay, so you may now unmute if you have a question. So if anybody has a question, you now may unmute yourself and ask it. And if you don't have a question, if I could just get some comments in chat, has this been helpful so far, enlightening so far, or have I put you to sleep? Maybe we get thumbs up, thumbs down, icons,
So
emojis.
it looks like some people did. I know Mira she said she had a question. It came to me and direct. So it came to me as a direct message. Sorry, Mira. So that's why. But
Mira,
she
lay
has
it
a
on me.
question.
Yeah, I just realized I was chatting. I didn't know that until you just said something, Tanika, so thank you.
You know what? Mira, let me just stop you right there. I've done 10,000 webinars and it gets me sometimes still. Because you think it says to everybody or to, but if very few people check that setting and so understand how it happened, understand why it happened, so but what's your question?
So I am looking at some entry-level positions, and I guess how to understand how I can apply my CPCA to that, because I found one on Baylor Scott and White about working for trauma registrar, and I was like, okay, what is that? Could I do that until I could get a real medical coding job? Does that translate well?
Well, I'll tell you what. There's cancer registrars and trauma registrars, and when you say a real medical coding job, okay, because you just said what is that? Well, I got to tell you, registrars to cancer registrars and trauma registrars are very important positions. You know what I mean? And so, and you may, who knows, you may, if you were to be able to get one of those positions, you may actually fall in love with it and not want it, not want to make another change. You know what I mean? But those are things that is so. I actually have some information I can share with you on investigating that. Trauma registration, trauma register, and so both of those are for statistical purposes. So when you turn on the news and you see the cancer rate in this part of the country is 20% higher than the rest of the country, that is all comes from statistics that trauma registers and cancer registers are vital to tabulating. Okay, and so the that's a very that is not a that role shouldn't be minimized. It's a very important position. I've known many of both trauma and cancer registers. So but that would be a if your goal was ultimately to be in mainstream coding, that would be a if you could get one of those jobs, but those are not necessarily entry level jobs. I mean, it might be entry level in the you might find one in an entry level position in the registry realm, but I'll tell you what, if I saw that if you came to me for a coding job and I saw that you had done some registry, cancer or tumor, or cancer or trauma, I would not minimize that because I know what it does. So so we can talk. I can get some information to you on that, and we can talk. I can provide guidance. Through the course of the week and moving on. Okay.
Yeah, I'm learning more and more that, sorry, if anyone's talking, you may go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've been learning more and more, like just in the past 2 weeks after I got my CPCA, how broad this all is. And it's kind of like, where do I start? Where do I want to end up? It's kind of like, I think I'm echoing. Am I echoing anywhere?
Not here, but it very well may be happening on your end. But I because I know what you're talking about. It's not happening here. So if you can muddle through it, it's not. We're not all hearing the echo. Just so you know. So
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear it.
oh, you can. You guys can. So I'll tell you what. We'll leave it there, Mira, and because I think I was picking up while you were laying down there. Again, Mira. I appreciate your participation and the thing is you are demonstrating exactly what I would hope that you would be doing and what I hope anybody would be doing. And it said you're exploring, you're trying to sort all this out, and you're figuring things out that may be overwhelming, but you're not throwing in the white towel because it's overwhelming. You're taking it bite by bite and sorting it all out, and that is you have no experience, okay, but that is the kind of mindset an employer would, and we'll come back to this later in the week. I don't want to play spoiler, but I'm going to come back to exactly this conversation with you, Mira, and I'm going to tell you how this can be an advantage. Okay, a distinct advantage, and I'll just leave it there. So more
Thank
to
you.
come on that. But Mira, you're doing all the right things, Mira. So, anybody else?
I don't know. I thought Kathy had something. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Ah, Kathy.
Was it Kathy? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm out of the car. 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 Yay. No, I was just going to say, when you were talking about the different things that you can do, the organization that you got your certification from, be active with that. They have webinars. They have, magazines with articles you can get CEUs and stuff.
And on our website, we have the CEU page where Novitas, which is a CMS Mac, has between 20 and 30 presentations every single month. Okay. And that
Yep.
is, again, you should be always doing something to continue your growth. So
Yeah, Medicare is a big part of the coding community, because the way they roll, sometimes it becomes the way everybody rolls.
well,
So,
I'll give you the 60-second history lesson here. In 1966, Medicare and Medicaid were developed by through the amendment to the Social Security Act. Okay, since that time, the government became the largest payer of healthcare services in the country. Okay, and so because it's a government, there's a lot of regulations, and then all the other commercial payers pretty much follow. I mean, there's variances, but the standards are pretty much set by government regulation. So even if you work in a medical practice, in a pediatric practice where there's no, where you might see Medicare once in a great while, it's still helpful to know Medicare processes and policies because because that is the foundation on which everything else is built. So, and we'll talk more about that during the week as well. So, all right, folks. So we're right at the 90 minutes. Right, did pretty good.
Doug,
Pretty good time.
before we close, can
Oh,
I ask
well, we're
somebody
going
a
to
question,
91.
please?
Okay. Just
Can I
kidding.
ask a question, please? I see Amanda, she posted that, that she was feeling discouraged. And Amanda, if you don't mind, can you elaborate on some of the things that you feel discouraged about? If you don't mind sharing, so that way, for as
You
as
know
an
what?
experience.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Tanika, because Amanda. Let's see. So Amanda and I see Amber uh uh chimed in. Amanda, were you part of that the mass layoff in that back in well, actually I think it was more past October, but and Amanda, Amanda, are you able to unmute and speak, or no? Tanika, I can't find it. So did you read the question, and are you able to either relay it or answer it?
She was just saying that she feels discouraged and she's a bit shy, so that's understandable. You can message and I'll relay for you. She was like, yes,
So,
but she was a part of the mass layoff.
so yeah,
So
she answered it. She's not
mhm.
talking because she's a little bit shy. Now Amanda, get over that. Not today, but get over that. Okay. So look, I lived in New Jersey. I got a job with a company. They promoted me to operations manager and moved me to Atlanta, Georgia. And 3 months later, they paid for my move, the whole darn thing. 3 months later, they closed the division. I was out of a job. So that happens. Okay, that happens, and there's no other way to feel other than discouraged. Okay, but I'd be lying to you if I told you it wasn't a possibility. Okay, but it, that's how you show. That's a time for you to step up and show what you're made of. Okay, and I know that that's, I know that sounds a lot like Tony Robbins or whatever, you know, but but that's where you use resources. And if you're a member of AAOMCP, Tanika, will you please tell them when am I available?
Every hour of the day. I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning,
Which
it's not
days?
exaggerating.
Which
Every day.
Yeah,
Every
every
day.
day that ends in Y, right? Um,
And I can attest to that because I have been on the website. I mean, in the middle of the night, early in the morning, when I thought Doug, I was like, surely he would be sleeping. And I would get a text message, Tanika, what are you looking for? Because he knows I'm looking for something. And he'll like give me a call. And he is available every single day at all hours of the night. I don't think
I
he's
can attest to that too.
and for those chiming in, do you think I care?
No, not at all.
No, I mean about my people.
I mean, yeah, of
Oh
course,
yeah.
yes, you do. Yeah, I thought you meant like, do you care whether or not if we're no.
No,
Doug is one of those people that I'm the same. Like how what you hear now, the same voice you would hear at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. um, so he's
folks,
been
you
very
folks are
helpful.
why I live and breathe. I mean, I'm telling you, you're why I get up in the morning. So,
Amber says I don't think Doug ever sleeps.
I don't think so either.
tr- trust me, trust me. I'm a world champion sleeper. Trust me. So,
Uh,
um, so Amanda, Amanda, I'll reach out to you on a sidebar, and we'll see what we can do to get you standing up straight. Okay. Are you that shy one on one?
And Amanda, I will say, keep in mind because I can be shy. I have my shy moments as well too. But remember, if you are shy, you limit yourself. And the old adage that says a closed mouth don't get fed is true in this industry. And if
Mhm.
you don't
Yeah.
speak up, then you are hindering yourself. So the best thing to do is feel get be okay with being uncomfortable and reaching out to people, network with people, because that's the only way doors are going to start to open for you.
And the
I
rest of the week,
I agree.
I think the rest of the week should bear some fruit for you too. So, um, thank you for our veterans here, our veteran coders, and long time friends and members. And for the new people, you know what? It's not just me. It is people like Kathy. It is people like Tanika. You know, you're part of a special group. You're not just a number. We're different here. We're different. We're different. And we're gonna show you. We're gonna show you just how different. Okay. So I'm gonna bring it to a close here, and we will see you tomorrow. If for some reason you miss a session this week, they'll all be available on demand, so you can go back and watch it for the first time or again. You know, and the PowerPoint will be in there, so probably need an hour to get it in there for today. After because there's some stuff behind the scenes before it can go in the learning system, but and then 365 days a year, you can go to the website and open a chat if you have a question. Hey, thanks everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.